3 lifelong friends, 6 trusty balls, and endless NFL takes. Welcome to 3 Guys, 6 Balls NFL podcast.
Welcome to 3 Guys, 6 Balls, episode 10. Today, we have a special emergency guest on the show. It is Cory from Shovicks Sports. Thanks for filling in for us. Avery wasn't able to make it because of Wi-Fi problems, and there was a fire in his house. Will, you want to give us some details on that?
He logs in here to start recording, and he's got some serious internet problems, and it's like, oh, there's big thunderstorms down where he's at in the southern part of America. Not South America, but, the South. And then he runs upstairs to check his router, comes back downstairs, and he says, and I quote, "It's like somebody's hotboxing my house." And the next thing we know, he goes, "Oh, that's a fire." And he picks his laptop up, turns the camera on, and this guy is walking by with a pan on fire. So somebody can't cook is basically the last bit of it. And then he takes the pan outside and I guess drops it. Again, bad Wi-Fi, so everything's real choppy. So drops the pan outside, and then the flames just go way up. I would assume he dropped a grease fire into a pool of water, which is a terrible idea. That's just awful. And then the internet cut out. So we assume he's still alive. Shout out to Avery. Hope your house doesn't burn down, but good news, it's a rental. So not your problem.
That's a true story, by the way.
That's true.
That's not made up. That's 100% true.
When the guy, I don't know who, Avery's roommate, when he walked by with the pan on fire, the first thing I said is, I wish we were recording right now.
So I sent a message in our Instagram chat for sports podcasters, and Cory responded and said he could hop on real quick and help us out with today's episode. So we appreciate you coming on. Just to get us started here, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on social media? And just tell us a little bit about your podcast, because we've been on yours, but you haven't been on ours yet.
Thanks for having me. Emergency situation, so I hope everything's all right on his end. I know about the Wi-Fi problems, and luckily, no house on fire, so hopefully it stays that way. But yeah, you can find us on Instagram, X, TikTok, at Shovicks Sports. I'm just one half. My brother is also a co-host of Shovicks Sports. We're kind of unique in a sense of I'm a Broncos fan and he's a Chiefs fan. So the rivalry kind of helps with, our show essentially. And luckily we heard that the Chiefs Broncos are playing on Christmas Day this year. So that's going to be fun. So we talk mostly football, but we'll talk anything really sports related. So you guys were on our show and we did some draft stuff. So excited to hear what you guys are about tonight.
Cool. Just a quick question. How did that happen? How did one of you become a Broncos fan and one of you become a Chiefs fan?
Yeah. So there's a myth out there that says I was a Chiefs fan when I was younger. I don't know about this. Maybe it happened. But on our dad's side, my grandparents are actually from Colorado. They kind of, maybe they got to me at a young enough age where they talked me into being a Broncos fan. And then obviously my mom's side and everyone else, my friends, they're the Chiefs fans. So it was a way of like, I'll be different. I've had good times and I've had bad times the last decade now. So here we are.
Yeah, I bet you were feeling pretty good when the Broncos won that Super Bowl, huh?
Oh, man. Well, with as bad as Peyton Manning was that year, the defense
people forget that.
And I try to remind people that, they talk about, Peyton Manning and what he was, but if you look back, his career didn't really end very well statistically. He was benched at one point that season for Brock Osweiler.
Yes.
And then, we were kind of like, uh-oh. There's no way we're going to go to a Super Bowl. But then you're like, okay, this defense, Von Miller, the no-fly zone, Chris Harris, Keith Lee, TJ Ward, that defense absolutely. And I'm to this day say that the Broncos defense in the Super Bowl ruined Cam Newton's career. Essentially, he wasn't the same after that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm fairly confident in saying that the Broncos were able to kind of derail what Cam Newton had going for him.
I agree. That's 100% true, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty fair statement, honestly. I never thought about it that way, but you're right.
Wasn't it like he didn't, dive for a fumble or something?
Yeah.
And then everybody started hating on him, and then after that, he just, was never the same.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally right there for him just to fall on. But he takes a step back like the guy was going to do, and right there, and then, literally the whole defense is out there just diving on the ball, and he was just like, nah. And then obviously, I think it was a couple months ago or here recently, he said that he would not give up his MVP to win that Super Bowl. He was okay with just winning an MVP that season.
Oh,
and
crazy.
I'm like, watching that game, I can definitely I can see that. So that just goes to show what Cam Newton was about.
Well, thanks for coming on with us today again, Cory. We appreciate it. Thanks for telling us a little bit about your podcast. If you guys aren't following Shovicks Sports already on social media, go give them a follow. They have some great content. And today we are going to be talking about some of the NFL remaining free agents, the best remaining NFL free agents, and some teams that they may fit with. The draft just happened a couple weeks ago, and all 32 teams made multiple selections trying to make their team better, both on offense and defense. ESPN, as we talked about in one of our previous episodes, gave every team in the draft their top 5 draft needs, and only 5 of those teams filled every single one of those needs in the draft. So there are multiple teams, including the ones who did fill all of their needs, according to ESPN, who still have some holes to fill on their roster. And so there's a lot of good free agents still out there who may fit with some of these teams. So we're going to talk about them and why they may fit. And we're going to go ahead and get started with one of the biggest free agent names available, which is Aaron Rodgers. Now, we all know that he's been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, there is recent news that Derek Carr is retiring from the NFL. So the Saints have lost their, I guess you could say, starting quarterback. So that opens a spot potentially for Aaron Rodgers. But what do you guys think?
Tyler Shuck, pal. It's what the Shuck season.
Yeah, I kind of have thoughts in that. I go back to the draft when the Saints took Chuck. I kind of felt like right then and there that the Saints had no intentions of winning this season. And it's no disrespect to him and what he's about, but at the same time, I think they kind of knew Derek Carr was probably leaning towards this. You don't go into a draft and not know what your franchise or at least your starting quarterback's going to do. So, yeah, once I saw that pick happened, I was kind of like, well, maybe they're on Arch Manning or even that guy from South Carolina, Sellers, who's possibly the number 1 overall pick next year. I think that's kind of where they're leaning towards. I don't know how you guys feel about Shuck and whatnot, but the crop of quarterbacks that the Saints have to choose from right now is very, very thin.
I think what the Shuck sums up how we feel about Tyler Shuck.
Yeah.
There's not really much else to say.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it multiple weeks now, and I don't mind saying it again. Tyler Shuck couldn't even start at Oregon. Now, granted, he had significant competition. He went to Texas Tech, didn't make it there either, and he went on to Louisville, had one good season, and then apparently became a second-round pick. So, good for him, I guess. Good for his finances, I'm sure, but I don't like it. And I don't think that Derek Carr retiring moves the Aaron Rodgers needle at all towards New Orleans. I mean, look at their coaching staff. There's just no possible way that Aaron Rodgers in his 1 billionth season in his 100th year of life is going to sign up for a first-year head coach for Kellen Moore and that coaching staff, Doug Nussmeier. That just doesn't do it. There's no way. He's had notable coaching problems already. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's just been what's reported. But I know if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm not going to a new team. I'm not going to try to establish myself now, trying to make a name for myself. The name is made. He wants to go to a win-now team, not a, hey, let's build it up. I also don't think, and like Cory said, which, just to note, we had to get a third person to keep the continuity of the name. So, again, thanks for showing up. Anyway, I think Aaron Rodgers moving forward, he's looking to possibly just retire, right? I don't know who's in this retirement class this year, but the Hall of Fame class from the retirement is looking pretty thin. Aaron Rodgers, regardless of how you feel about him, he's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. And so if he's in a class that's going to be not by himself, but where he's the biggest name, again, not that we're comparing Derek Carr to MVP to Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think it's a bad option for him. I think he's definitely going to consider it. And the longer he waits, the worse it's going to get. I just think people are going to be less willing to put up with a guy who's cemented, not just set in stone in his ways, but cemented in his ways over his long history career. Teams just going to have a hard time fitting them into their system because he's a my system kind of guy.
I agree with you, Will. I'm glad you said that he doesn't fit with the Saints because I don't think he fits with the Saints. I don't think he would even want to go to the Saints. If there's any team that he would want to go to, I think it would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he's been linked this whole time. And the reason for that is because, I mean, their offense may not be the best, right? You just traded George Pickens, and now you just basically have DK Metcalf at receiver with a bunch of guys
They have Robert Woods. He was good at one point in his career.
Okay.
They also lost Najee.
Regardless, the offense isn't great, right? The offense hasn't been great for a few years now since they had Ben Roethlisberger. But the reason that Aaron Rodgers would want to go there, what makes it attractive, is because that defense has proven that they can get you double-digit wins and make the playoffs regardless of how the offense performs. If I was Aaron Rodgers and I had a choice, I would pick the Pittsburgh Steelers because that defense, regardless of how poorly you play on offense, will still carry you to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I look at it as Kellen Moore is a first-time head coach. You're trying to build your culture there. Is it really worth the problem that may come with that? You know, you're going to see a quarterback who's going to want to say in everything. You're not really establishing anything as a culture from a head coaching perspective for a guy who may only play one, maybe 2 more years. I don't think Kellen Moore would want to do that. I mean, yes, your chances go up of winning, but you're not really setting yourself up long-term for success if you bring in Aaron Rodgers. If it was 3 to 5 years, yeah, you absolutely could, because you can still establish what you're wanting to do. But I think you may lose the locker room a little bit if something goes wrong or, things aren't going how you planned. I mean, we saw what happened in New York with that, right? They brought him in, obviously the terrible injury right off the start, but it was all downhill from there. Gets a coach fired, Hackett gets demoted, etc. So yeah, that's one way that I look at it as well.
So if you're Aaron Rodgers, and let's just say you have your pick of teams, because I think we all can agree there are not 32 better active starting quarterbacks than Aaron Rodgers currently. Is that a fair statement?
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
So there are 10 teams, maybe 10 is not enough, but 10 teams that would seriously not look at him, or do you think that's not enough? We don't need to name the teams, but if you had the opportunity to get Aaron Rodgers, like for instance the Raiders, not that they're even looking at him, but I think you take Aaron Rodgers over Geno Smith, right? Or disagree?
I think I disagree, because we talked about it last week on our show. Geno Smith is the perfect quarterback for Pete Carroll.
Aaron Rodgers lived in a play-action system his entire career in Green Bay, though.
I just look at it as like relationship with coaches as well. Like Pete Carroll's an old school guy. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. So it's like,
Aaron Rodgers has the one-button chin strap still. He's an old school guy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So let's just say we'll cut it in half, right? Let's say half the teams have quarterbacks that they are established with, and they are willing to we don't even want to look at this 41-year-old who could give us 1, maybe 2 Peyton Manning years in Denver, which, as we mentioned, we're not always good, getting benched for Brock Osweiler, but still you got a Super Bowl out of it. You got 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl win out of it. So, I mean, that's not bad. If you were Aaron Rodgers and you could pick any of those teams and any team available, where would you want to go?
I would still probably go Pittsburgh. I just think the culture that they have there, Mike Tomlin being him, yes, they did just trade George Pickens, but you still have DK Metcalf, Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson would be just fine. That defense is still Pittsburgh's defense, right? They're still going to be able to, win them games if he's having an off day. While I think him and Mike Tomlin may clash at first, I still think in the end they both kind of get what they want.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I would still say either the Steelers or the Saints. I already made my case for the Steelers with the defense, but the case for the Saints, I know the roster is not great, but you play in the NFC South. And if you want a chance at the playoffs, the NFC South is a pretty good place to do that.
Yeah, but that team's not really built to win right now. I think, and not just for the meme, but I actually really like him going to the 2, and this team is not talked about, but I like him going to the Vikings, right? Is J.J. McCarthy really your guy? Yeah, you drafted him in the first round right now, or last year, but even his time at Michigan, he was not a great ball thrower, and you've got Sam Howell as your backup and Brett Rippon after him. Are you really putting your full stock into those guys? Or what are we doing, right? So if you had the option, 1, maybe 2 years of Aaron Rodgers for a team that we saw last year was ready to win now, they just had some issues. You get a guy in there who you don't need to, you need him to associate with your receivers, right, in your offense, and he's got to have good rapport with like 15 guys on that team. But that's not the most difficult. Everybody has something they could learn from Aaron Rodgers, football-wise, I'm sure. Not just for the Brett Favre going, right, Packers, Jets, Vikings. It's not just for that, but I just think that team is built to win right now. But with what they have at quarterback, They're just not going to.
Yeah, you make a good point. Honestly, I can see if J.J. McCarthy gets hurt again, the Vikings will sign Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to ride it out with Sam Howell. I think they'd sign Aaron Rodgers and can have him complete the cycle. Honestly, it does make sense, though. It does make sense. I think J.J. McCarthy probably needs a little bit more time, and we could be wrong. The Vikings feel confident in J.J. McCarthy. They're going to roll with him, so we could be wrong. But I guess we'll see.
I like the Vikings pick, but I also, there for a little bit, I thought maybe San Francisco could maybe be a sleeper in that, but I think that kind of died down a little bit. But I think the longer that goes without them signing Brock Purdy to an extension, then I think, I'll still hold out that he could end up going back to California.
Yeah, he's from the Bay Area and went to school at Cal. He's talked about before wanting to go back to California. I don't think the draw is there as much for the team. I don't think the Niners this year are as good as the Niners the last couple of years, but I don't hate it.
All right, well, let's get into some of these other guys, these other remaining free agents. Will, why don't you go ahead and start us off with one of your top free agents available and give us a couple teams where they may fit?
Sure. You want offense or defense first? You pick.
Let's go offense.
Offense first. Let's talk about Nicholas Chubb. Nicholas Jamal Chubb, if you will. Went to school at Georgia, drafted by the Browns in the second round, 35 overall, so right early in the second round back in 2018. Went on to have nearly 5 straight years of 1,000 rushing yards each. And I say nearly because in his rookie season, he had 996 yards. And then he followed up the 4 following seasons with 1,000 yards each. He then tore an ACL, fractured his foot, and has not been the same. I mean, this guy, if you don't know, Nick Chubb is a big dude, right? He, not in height, but in physical stature, rivals Derrick Henry, which is a bit of foreshadowing there. But he's a big dude. He's a hard downhill runner. Arguably the best running back still available. The injury concerns have it. I mean, pretty much everybody hesitating. But there's lots of teams out there that need a running back. Even if you have running backs, you always need a running back. Look at the 49ers the past 3 seasons, right? They have 1 go down and then like 4 more go down. And so they're always picking people up. It's crazy. It's going to be tough for him coming back, right? He's not, nobody can expect an Adrian Peterson type year after he tore his ACL, came back, ran for over 2,000 yards. But I like him going to Dallas, not just because I'm a Dallas fan. But I think Dallas needs a Nick Chubb type running back on their roster at all times. I think Nick Chubb averages like 3-point-something yards per carry. And if that's not Dallas Cowboys football, I don't know what is. 3 yards in the cloud it does.
It was 3.3 last year, but that was his only season averaging 3.3, and it was because of the injury. He just wasn't the same. Before that, he had never averaged below 5 yards a carry.
Oh, that's too good for Dallas. They can't have a running back like that.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true.
No, but I think Dallas they brought in some free agents. They've tried to address their running back issue, but they also lost some. And after Jerry Jones going on record saying that Derrick Henry wouldn't fit in Dallas' system and he wouldn't have had as good a season there, I think he needs to do what he can, especially after saying, you better watch out because before or after the draft, we're going to make some pretty big moves, which means literally any time we'll probably do something. So considering that he puts his foot in his mouth at 900 years old like he does, I think bringing Nick Chubb would bring some veteran help in your offense. He is 29 years old, so he's getting up there in running back age. I don't know the last time a running back over 30 got paid any, dare I say, decent NFL money. I mean, it's unreasonable money for all of us, but decent NFL money. And so you're not looking for a long-term deal here. You're just trying to see, it's just a 1 year sign him and hope for the best kind of deal. I actually like him in Pittsburgh. They didn't leave Najee, let Najee Harris go. He went off in free agency to the Chargers. They just drafted Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round. They re-signed Jalen Warren and gained Kenneth Gainwell from the Eagles last season. So they have a decent running back core already, but with Mason Rudolph as your current listed starting quarterback, even though I am probably the biggest Will Howard fan out there right now, even with Will Howard, you're going to need to run the football. You're going to need all the running backs you can. I just think that they're going to need to bring somebody in just like Dallas is. I also like, as kind of a dark horse here, I like the Baltimore Ravens signing Nick Chubb. They already have Derrick Henry. Obviously, everybody knows that. They've got Justice Hill. So you've got your 2 major backs right there. But Derrick Henry is getting up there. He's been in the league for a long time. He will be 31 when the season starts.
He's just different, though.
He is built different. Yeah. There's no question. But he's still getting up there in age, and there's just no way that he's going to be able to continue at the same rate every single year. And so another guy who runs a lot like Derrick Henry is Nick Chubb. And so without having to change your offense, being able to sub your guys in, they have the potential to bring him in as a scheme fit guy to just plug and play whenever they need to. And so getting a guy who can come in and just be that same guy, just a little bit shorter, I think would be a huge benefit for the Ravens as well.
I really like the Baltimore fit. I actually didn't think about that for Nick Chubb. That would be interesting because you have two big guys, and Nick Chubb could just come in and just take a little bit of pressure off Derrick Henry. He doesn't have to do as much. It'd be terrible for fantasy because I had Derrick Henry on my fantasy team last year, and I was pissed every time they took him off the field on third down when he's actually a really good receiving back. He showed it at the end of the season when their backup running back got hurt. He was a really good receiver, and they took him off the field every time. So I was pissed off every time they took him off the field to put this other dude on the field. I was like, what are you doing? Like, I need him to win. But yeah, I think he could be good in Dallas too. I mean, Cory, you're familiar with having like three running backs. The Broncos did it last year, right?
Yeah, they did. Denver needs running backs. I actually had Dallas as number 2 for Nick Chubb, kind of going in there, but I like Denver. They had Estime. They obviously drafted RJ Harvey, and then they had Jaleel McLaughlin. Estime had some issues holding onto the ball in key situations last year, but I still like Estime and I like the potential, and obviously RJ Harvey. But if it wasn't Nick Chubb, I wanted Alvin Kamara. So for this sake, Nick Chubb, I think would be a great kind of mentor per se to like an Audric Estime and RJ Harvey. Built kind of similar, running styles similar, but again, Dallas looking, and go to what you guys were saying with Dallas. Yeah, Dallas is definitely in need. Javonte Williams, obviously they picked him up. I don't think he fits in the mold of what Dallas wants to do with the running game. So again, if you were to bring in like a Nick Chubb, I mean, you still got to help Dak in some way, right? Like you got the receivers, you got that kind of skill positions there. Now you really just need that run game. And what they were, what they had last year, Rico Dowdle and some of those guys, like you got to get someone who's proven, a little more in there. And I think Nick Chubb also brings that, he's very similar to Zeke when Zeke was at his best, right? Like similar smash mouth, good goal line running back. So I think it would be a perfect fit as far as, Nick Chubb with Dallas as well.
Like you just said, I like him in Dallas a lot. They drafted 2 rookie running backs, which tend to do pretty well coming into the NFL. Running backs that get the opportunity early to show what they can do, just like corners. For some reason, rookie corners have set interception records the last 2 or 3 times. Not like years in a row, but when the record gets broken, it's by your first or second year corner. And same thing with NFL rookies and running backs is that if they were decent in college, they end up being able to be pretty good in the NFL because it's the best of the best, and they were good in college, and so the blocking is better, the offense is better, the scheme is better, the coaching is better, and so they did draft 2 rookies, but having a veteran in there to show them the ropes, to take some pressure off, to do what they can. And then you've got Javonte Williams coming off the injury.
Yeah, he absolutely was not the same once he came back from that injury. You can tell. Yeah. I mean, he started showing signs of it, but then I don't know if it was just maybe Sean Payton decided that he wanted to bring in other, rotational pieces because he wasn't getting the yardage, that he thought. He really struggled in the preseason, and that didn't set a very good precedence heading into the regular season. So again, Sean Payton being Sean Payton, you're not, he can only do so much before he's, he wants now, right?
Right.
So he just wasn't the same once he came back from that major injury.
And I also think Dak, as mentioned, you said Dak needs help. Dak is at his best when he has a good running game. And there's a lot of quarterbacks you can say that with, but because I'm a Dallas fan, I think of Dak first. He needs to hand the ball off quite a few times a game just to set that, get everybody creeping forward so we can throw it over the top, get George Pickens and CD open. I don't know, I like Nick Chubb in Dallas a lot.
Even when Dak has a running game, somehow he always finds a way to throw an interception.
In the key,
he just always finds a way, no matter what. Just always finds a way. But anyways, let's move on to our next free agent. Cory, give us your offensive best free agent available.
Yeah, so it's Amari Cooper. There's a handful of teams that I was kind of narrowing it down with Amari Cooper. I was going back and forth between the Packers and the Ravens, but I like him in Green Bay, and here's why. They got a young group, but they also have guys that are injury prone, and I think he's not going to be, an every down type player, but I think he's also a good mold of, what you want your receivers to be, right? There was a time where Amari Cooper was top notch. Like he was so reliable. Cleveland kind of ruined him, a little bit. Um,
Just
you
like
go-
everybody else.
just like everybody else. But you go back to when he was with the Raiders, him and Michael Crabtree and what they were able to do there, and even him with Dallas. I think he had a good run with Dallas before moving on. I thought he would do a little more with Buffalo and just in there what they were doing. But I do like him with Green Bay. You know, I think if you need that big catch, he could be that guy. You're not going to ask him to go out and catch, 8 to 10 for, $1.25, $1.50. But if you need, a big chunk play, it's a big 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20 or whatever it is, he would be a guy that you could rely on, and he can just kind of show the ropes to the younger guys. Because I like Matthew Golden there and Christian Watson when he can stay healthy, and even Jalen Reed. So that's where I'm going with for Amari Cooper.
Yeah, Amari Cooper's only a year removed from having a 1,000-yard season with the Browns, too. So, I mean, he still has a little something. Obviously, he's not the same player he was. As you mentioned in Dallas, there was a video that I remember watching of Amari Cooper in Dallas when he was with CeeDee Lamb. They were down, and they were about to run a play to win the game. Like, they needed to score a touchdown. And the route was supposed to go to Amari Cooper. And there's a video of CeeDee Lamb on the sideline saying to Amari Cooper, hey, like, let me get this route. And Amari Cooper's like, nah, man, like, this is mine. and then he goes and scores a touchdown. Like, Amari Cooper was legit.
Oh, yeah.
So I think he has a little something. I think he can teach these young wide receivers a little something. So I know Green Bay's wide receiver room is kind of a little crowded, but even if it's just for depth and just to teach young guys, like, I think Amari Cooper would be a good fit.
Yeah, and, I even thought about in my head, like, what a reunion with, like, the Raiders would be like for him. But I think they like their young tight end group, obviously, and then they have Jacoby Myers. So then you really look big picture of Jordan Love needs help. I know there was, for the longest time, everyone would give the Packers crap about you're not getting receivers. Well, now they're starting to build up a nice little core of them. What better way to do that than put in a vet who's proven to be, when he's at his best, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL.
I've actually never even considered Amari Cooper to Green Bay. I actually really like that. Now, as a Dallas fan, sorry to keep mentioning that, but I hate the Packers, specifically when it comes to playoff time, because it's just every single year. It doesn't matter who the
Isn't that just
quarterback is.
every team? Isn't that just every team?
Yeah, but it always ends up being the Packers.
Or the 49ers.
Well,
yeah,
it's fair.
Yeah, it's one of those two. It's nobody else.
It's nobody else. But I think you're right. I mean, they've got a core of the group there with Christian Watson. They just drafted. Did they have Christian Watson still? Yeah, Christian Watson still.
And then they drafted Golden.
Matthew Golden.
Yeah. And then so Brandon's a seasoned vet, and who, like you said, is not going to be expected to bring the world. That's a good move for them.
All right. Well, I'm going to stick with a wide receiver for my best available free agent, and I'm going to go with Keenan Allen. I really like Keenan Allen. I actually think that he still has the potential to be a low-end wide receiver one. I do. He did have a down year last year with the Bears, but they were also the second worst passing offense in the league.
Well, yeah, your quarterback's getting sacked 68 times. You're going to have a hard time throwing the football.
Exactly. Fun fact, Will, because I know we've made fun of the Bears for giving up 68 sacks. In 2023, the Giants gave up 85 sacks.
Good golly. Oh, yeah, it's all Daniel Jones' fault. All his fault.
85.
That's terrible. Is that a record?
I looked back like 10 seasons and nobody was even close to that.
That's got to be the record.
I don't even know how I got on that, but I just came across that stat and I was like, holy cow. Like, we make fun of the Bears for giving up 68, but 85? Dang.
That's terrible.
That's terrible. But yeah, I think Keenan Allen would be a great fit for both the Bills and the Cardinals, and kind of for similar reasons, honestly. So they both had pretty good offenses last year, and both of their defenses ranked outside of the top 10 as well. The Bills were 11th, and the Cardinals were 15th in defense. So both of these teams this offseason, they went out and said, hey, we need to get better at defense. If we want to take that next step, take our team to the next level, we need to get better at defense. So both the Bills and the Cardinals in the draft, they went very defensive heavy. The Bills drafted 6 defensive players with 6 out of their 9 picks. Their first offensive player wasn't picked until their 6th pick in the draft. Then the Cardinals had 7 picks, and out of those 7 players, they picked 6 defensive players. So both of these teams went defensive heavy. But now it's time for both of these teams to focus on their offense. They need a wide receiver. Both these teams need a wide receiver. So I'm going to start with the Bills. The Bills ranked 9th in passing yards per game last season with 227.9. And Josh Allen actually had the second best passer rating of his career with 101.4. So you might ask, well, why do the Bills need a wide receiver? If they were already that good at passing and Josh Allen had his second best passer rating of his career, why do they need a wide receiver? We talked about it last week on our show with our guest Lincoln. He mentioned when he was talking about the Broncos, actually, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, Corey, but he was saying that, when it comes down to it, when the game is on the line, who is Bo Nix going to throw to? Is he going to go to Cortland Sutton? Or who else does he have? He was making that point, like, when the game's on the line, what, legit receiver do you have that you can count on in crunch time? It's kind of the same case for Josh Allen, right? The Bills' leading receiver in the regular season was Khalil Shakir, and I like him a lot, but he did miss a couple games, but he had 76 catches for 821 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then after him, their leading receiver was rookie wide receiver Keon Coleman, who also missed a few games, but he had 29 catches for 556 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then they got Amari Cooper to help with the passing game. And again, you can see Josh Allen, it didn't matter that he didn't have that legit wide receiver one because he's Josh Allen and he's great. But when it mattered in the AFC Championship game, it mattered because look, here's some of the stats from his receivers in that game. Khalil Shakir, 46 receiving yards. Amari Cooper, 33 receiving yards. Keon Coleman, 1 catch for 12 yards. His tight end, Dalton Kincaid, 2 catches for 13 yards. Their leading receiver in that game was Mac Hollins. In the regular season, Mac Hollins had 378 receiving yards. When it mattered, the receivers for the Bills were a problem. It didn't matter in the regular season because you can see they won 13 games, but when it mattered the most, who did Josh Allen have to go to? Nobody. He had Mac Hollins. The Bills, they need to sign Keenan Allen because, again, in my opinion, Keenan Allen still has the potential to be a low-end wide receiver one. And that is something that Josh Allen has not had this last season. And it's something that, again, he doesn't need, but I think to take their offense to the next level and have that playmaker when it matters, they need to sign Keenan Allen.
Buffalo Bills ran 53% of the time were in an 11 formation, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, which means 3 receivers. And so if you're running 3 receivers out there over half of the time, which is an insane amount to run the same formation 53% of the time, you need someone to be able to rely on heavily. I think you make a great point of who do you have, right? It comes down to that 13 seconds, right? That's what everybody complains about with the Bills. Well, that's all the Bills fans complain about. And now, granted, they never got to touch the ball. But if you take the 60 minutes prior to that, who did you have? And you had somebody. You had Stephon Diggs at that point. You don't have anybody now. You have no go-to guy. I don't like it because I don't want the Bills to win, but I do like it.
Yeah, and I do actually like him there. And here's why. They have Keon Coleman, right? He is almost identical build to what Keenan Allen is. But Keenan Allen has better separation as far as what that goes. But if you're going to beat the Chiefs, you got to have something other than one receiver, right? And you need to use the run game and all that. I think Keenan Allen, then you can put guys where they actually need to be instead of trying to get the mismatch. I think Keenan Allen would still be a mismatch against the Chiefs. And I think that would still open up their offense a lot more with what he's able to do.
Yeah, and Keenan Allen is a guy who in his career, he's had 6 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and he's had 5 100-catch seasons. And most recently, he did it in 2023 with the Chargers. So he's only been a year removed from having a 100-catch, 1,000-yard receiving season. And the only reason that he didn't last year is because he wasn't the number one for the Bears. But again, the Bears were the second worst passing offense in the NFL last year. If you go to the Bills, they gave up the least amount of sacks last year. They only gave up 14 sacks. So if you go to the Bills, not only is it, do you have a better quarterback in Josh Allen, you also are going to have more time to get open because you're not on a Caleb Williams team where he's getting sacked 68 times. He literally had no time to throw. So if you go to the Bills, who have a great offensive line, you also have Josh Allen, who doesn't get sacked as often because of his rushing ability. That gives you more time to get open. And so I think that Keenan Allen still has that ability to be a low-end wide receiver one. I think he can still have 1,000 yards. And I think if he goes to the Bills, he will have 1,000 yards. So I think the Bills need to sign him. Now, to go to the Cardinals, it's a pretty similar reason as the Bills, honestly. The Cardinals do have better wide receivers. They have their wide receiver one already in Marvin Harrison Jr. They have one of the best tight ends in the NFL in Trey McBride. Was Marvin Harrison Jr. a little bit inconsistent last year? Sure. But when you have a quarterback who can't see you, you're going to be inconsistent. He had a pretty solid rookie season. It wasn't what everybody was expecting it to be, but he still had 62 catches for 885 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's only going to get better. So he is projected to be your wide receiver 1. Then you have Trey McBride, again, who's one of the best tight ends in the league. What do you have after that, though? You don't have a lot after that. You need a legit threat, a legit third threat in that passing offense, because the Cardinals ranked 18th in passing offense last year. They ranked 7th in rushing yards, which is very good, but then your passing offense was not great. And so they need to improve in that area. So if you put Keenan Allen there, again, he's had 6 1,000-yard seasons and 5 100-catch seasons. And look at what he did last year. He had 744 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. That's pretty good, especially if you're not going to be the number 1 guy. So in this offense, he would be the number 3, but he would be a very good number 3. He would give Kyler Murray with his, and I'm going to use your word, with his scramble ability.
Nice.
He's going to be able to make a lot of plays because Kyler Murray can get out of the pocket and buy extra time with his legs, which would give Keenan Allen more time to get open. Now, kind of similar to what you were saying, Corey, with Keenan Allen, if he was to go to the Bills and they have Keon Coleman, he can mentor Keon Coleman and help him get better because this is a guy who has had a very successful career and he can help Marvin Harrison Jr. do the same thing. So I think the Bills and the Cardinals are very similar in this situation where Keenan Allen would be a great fit for both of them because their passing offense needs to get better.
Yeah, and to go to that as well, like you said, what else do they have, right? I think that also opens things up for Trey McBride. And it also may open up a little bit better for Marvin Harrison. And I think Keenan Allen on the out routes in the back shoulder throws, if they were to get Kyler and his little legs to the outside a little quicker to be able to pepper the out routes, I think Keenan Allen would fit in great there with that. But if you don't have those guys, they're just going to be able to bracket Trey McBride, bracket Marvin Harrison. So now that leads Kyler in a tough situation where, yes, he can scramble, but what if he doesn't, right? Like, now you're just opening up the field more for him, and now you're being able to open the field up for other guys. I mean, you see it with all the other teams that have multiple receivers. I mean, the Bengals with Chase and T. Higgins, they're able to, now you can't just focus on one. You have to game plan for the whole thing. So, yeah, I mean, that would be a pretty good fit for Arizona.
All right, well, let's move on to our next guy. We're kind of running out of time here a little bit since we kind of got a late start due to the emergency fire we had going on with Avery.
Wow, not we. Yeah. Him.
that Avery had, the emergency fire Avery had. But with these next guys, let's just go through them real quick. Let's just give one team that you think they fit best with as we go through these guys. So let's go back to Will. Give us your next guy.
Asante Samuel Jr. is my next guy. Top corner and for the Chargers. I almost said the Clippers. Wrong LAC. For his career.
You had to get our basketball references.
Right? I had to get the basketball reference. Also, Mark Davis' haircut still sucks. I had to slip that in there. Asante Samuel, top corner for the Chargers, almost as he can. He had a shoulder injury and then had neck surgery, which kept him out some last year. He has been on record of saying, it's not going to have any effect going long term. Of course, he said that, right? I actually really like him to most of the teams you've already said. The Bills, the Ravens, and actually the Bengals. The Bengals couldn't stop a wet paper bag last season. I mean, they couldn't do anything. There's one goal in the AFC right now, and it's to stop the Chiefs. And what do the Chiefs do? The Chiefs throw the ball. So pick your contender in the AFC. That's where the top corner should go. They honestly should open the bag for him. Give him a 1-year deal. Give him a whole lot of money for 1 year as an on-a-prove-it deal to make sure the next year is not going to be lasting. But again, AFC is where he needs to go. I want to see him in Washington because Dan Quinn, but he really should go to anywhere in the AFC. That's going to be a contender.
Yeah, I like the Bengals. I actually had Stephon Gilmore, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And the Bengals were one of my teams, but I'm going to talk about somebody else now because I think he's a better fit for somebody else. But the Bengals were one team I picked. And one of the reasons for that is because one of their starting corners, Dax Hill, is coming off an ACL injury. And when your pass defense was already that bad, is it really going to be better when you put in a corner who's coming off an ACL injury?
No.
I don't think so. So the Bengals, and they didn't draft a corner either. I really thought they were going to draft a corner. I'd like to see them draft a corner because their pass defense was just bad. Like, you can improve your pass defense with a defensive linemen and linebackers somewhat, but you also need guys in the secondary to cover the wide receivers. So the Bengals didn't really do anything to address that. And so I think that if they signed Asante Samuel Jr., that it would be beneficial for them.
They haven't even signed any corner free agents, not even like his backups currently. They've done nothing for their secondary. They brought in a couple linebackers, but that's where their help stops off the line. So they need something to back there.
Chiefs fans are happy because the Bengals are wasting Joe Burrow's best years.
The Bengals defense are. They're doing a lot for the offense. They're making sure he's got weapons.
For the offense.
That's true.
That's true. But that defense is saying, yeah, your offense is great, but defense wins championships. Clearly, we're not going to.
You got any thoughts on Asante Samuel Jr., Corey?
Yeah, that's actually one of my brother's favorite corners, and he was kind of curious on to hear what you guys think on that as well. So I like the Bengals because I was actually going to put who I was going to talk about there as well, just because they've done the absolute bare minimum to help their defense. I guess when you're wanting to put up 40-some points a game, you're going to hope your defense can give up like 38. I guess I'm not too sure, but they need as much help as they can get, and that's still a good veteran corner, right? If he comes back healthy from all the injuries and stuff and whatnot. I actually was curious as to why the Chargers kind of even let him go to begin with themselves. I think they're already weak in the secondary themselves, so that's why I was extremely surprised to see that they hadn't even considered it.
I'd say it's got to be the same reason that the Colts let go of Peyton Manning. You had neck surgery. Everything's uncertain. We're just going to find somebody else.
Yeah.
Since we're on the topic of the Bengals and you were going to pick your next guy for the Bengals, tell us who that is, Corey, and why you think he fits with the Bengals.
Yeah, it's Von Miller, and deep down it should be the Denver Broncos, honestly, finish his career out there. I know I was going to pick the Chiefs, but I don't want to put that in the atmosphere, so the Bengals. They need rushing help, right? Or rushing to get to the quarterback, essentially. I know they have Trey Hendrickson, but who knows what's going to happen there with this. I read that it's not getting any better as far as the contract talks have gone there.
Yeah, so worse.
It's getting worse. That they've kind of cut off communications as a whole, right? And I don't think Von Miller's going to ask for a ton of money, and I don't know. I guess I can't speak on that. He could still ask for a ton of money, and the Bengals still may not be able to get it. It'd be curious to see if they do give him maybe like $15 million, and then Trey Hendrickson's back like, what the hell? So that would be an interesting kind of situation. But again, they're wasting Joe Burrow's best years. And it's frustrating because Joe Burrow's a really good quarterback, and what he's been able to do. And they obviously got over the hump once against Kansas City, and thought they were all world, and they haven't done anything since. So if you're going to win the AFC, you're going to have to do it with defense, because you have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, hopefully Bo Nix, and some of those other guys. You're not going to be able to do it by putting up that many points, because there's defenses in the AFC that can shut that down.
The Bengals just need everything on defense.
Yes.
And you said they need quarterback rushing help. With their first pick, they went Shamar Stewart, who we've talked about in this show before. Three sacks in 3 years?
Four and a half.
4.5 sacks in 3 years.
1.5 every year. 1.5 every year. Consistently.
I mean, that's not it. You use your first round pick on a guy who can barely get to the quarterback. But he had good pressures.
That they went defense, though.
Yeah. Pressures in the AFC mean nothing, because you've got, like was just mentioned, if you're on the Bengals, you've got Lamar Jackson you're chasing down, you've got Josh Allen you're chasing down, and you've got Patrick Mahomes who somehow runs. I don't know.
And you got to chase down Will Howard.
And you're going to have to chase him. You won't. You don't have to chase him down. He'll be standing there slinging it. No question he'll be slinging it. You won't have to chase down Aaron Rodgers, that's for sure. But you're right. They need some serious help. Von Miller is not. I don't think he's fully washed up yet. I don't think he did himself really any real favors in Buffalo. But I think he's still got some left in the tank. Super Bowl MVP, Von
amount
Miller.
of money. We all would have taken that. No one thought the Bills were actually going to give him that contract. None of us would have turned that down. At our age, for that, no, yeah, there's no way. I'd be like, yeah, I'll sign it yesterday. Like, let's go.
Hey, he had 6 sacks last season.
I mean, outside of Hendrickson, I mean, that's still more than what the Bengals will probably get this year out of anybody outside
True.
of that.
True. That's true. All right. Well, I'm going to get into my last guy here, and then we're going to wrap up the show because we are out of time. So my last guy is Stephon Gilmore, as I mentioned. He's a veteran corner. He's not the same as he once was, and we've been saying that for years now. Even when he signed with Dallas, I mean, everybody was saying, he's not what he once was. But Stephon Gilmore is a guy who has done just about everything there is to do from the corner position in the NFL. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. He's won a Super Bowl. He's made the Pro Bowl 5 times, and he's been All-Pro twice. Why not put him on the Jaguars? Your first 2 draft picks were corners. You drafted Travis Hunter and you drafted Caleb Ransaw, I believe from Tulane, with your first 2 picks because your secondary was the absolute worst. They ranked dead last in passing yards given up last season.
Jeez.
Yeah, they were the worst. They made some moves to address that. They did sign Jordan Lewis from Dallas as a nickel corner, who I think is going to do well there because he's better than he's going to make their defense better. He's not great, but he's going to make their defense better. You signed Travis Hunter and Caleb Ransaw. So if you made these moves, especially with your 2 young corners, you're expecting them to come in and play right away and contribute right away. So who is better than Stephon Gilmore, who again has won Defensive Player of the Year from the corner position? He's won a Super Bowl, he's made Pro Bowls, and he's been an All-Pro. Who is better to mentor those guys and teach them the NFL game than Stephon Gilmore? And he can also be a contributor for the Jaguars because who knows how much Travis Hunter is actually going to play corner? Who knows what position he's going to play? He could be playing quarterback out there 50% of the time. Who knows? But I just think that Stephon Gilmore would be good for the Jaguars just specifically because of his ability to teach these young corners who they drafted how to play the NFL game.
Yeah, he's seen a few things in his time, right? Like you said, he's won awards, won a Super Bowl. He knows how to play the game the right way. And that's what you want with the young defense, especially with Travis Hunter. Like, you don't know what you're going to get from Travis Hunter. But what better way to do that than put in a vet to kind of show him the ropes? I think getting away from Colorado and that circus there, I think that's going to help Travis Hunter a lot to see an NFL locker room. But then you sit him next to Stephon Gilmore per season. Yeah, I would think more highly of Travis Hunter going forward if he had someone to learn from like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in college, I mean, you see, and I know these are just highlights because everybody loves to point them out, but it's just one play here and there. But like you've seen plays of Travis Hunter just getting torched.
Yeah.
At the corner position. Like, I think he's going to be a better receiver than he is going to be a corner. But if they really are going to play him on both sides of the ball, one, when he's at wide receiver, he can have Stephon Gilmore covering him in practice, teaching him like, hey, you should have done this or you should have done this, like to get away from me or whatever, And when he's on defense, he can teach him like, hey, this is what you should do. So he's kind of teaching him the same thing like both times. So I think it would be a really good fit. Again, the Jaguars had the worst pass defense in the NFL, and you can never have too much depth at a position where you were the worst.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
That's all we have time for today on our show. Want to give another thank you and shout out to Cory from Shovicks Sports filling in for Avery today because of the emergency fire that blew up Avery's house potentially. We don't actually know yet. So thank you again for filling in. We appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time. We'll be back next week with more NFL content for you. And as always, don't forget to keep your balls played with. We'll see you next time.